J.P. Morgan was one of the most important men in American history. He had huge amounts of money and great power. He was very influential. This means his actions and words could change many things in the country. He could help a big company succeed, or he could let it fail completely. His decisions affected many people and businesses. Morgan owned U.S. Steel. This was the first company in the world to be worth $1.5 billion. In today's money, it would over $1 trillion. He also controlled many other large and important businesses. He was a major force in industries like railroads, steel, and electricity. America's economy faced serious trouble more than once during his life. There were times of panic when banks failed and people lost their savings. On several occasions, the entire United States economy depended on J.P. Morgan. He used his money, his connections, and his power to stop these crises. The government itself asked for his help to save the country from financial collapse. Because he was so powerful, people had strong feelings about him. Many people admired J.P. Morgan. They saw him as a strong leader who built American industry and saved the economy. But many other people hated him. They thought he controlled too much. They believed he was greedy and used his power only for his own benefit. He was a controversial figure, someone people strongly agreed or disagreed about. There will likely never be another person quite like J.P. Morgan. His life was full of big events and important decisions. This is his story. We will explore his journey from his early life to becoming one of the most powerful bankers ever known. We will look at the amazing things he achieved and the problems he caused. Let's begin learning about this famous and complicated man. 2. A rich young man. John Pierpont Morgan was born in Connecticut in 1837. His family had a lot of money because his father, Junius Spencer Morgan, was a rich banker. Junius had big plans for his son. He wanted John to follow him and become an important financier. Because of this, Junius made sure John received the best education possible. John went to excellent schools. However, John did not have a happy childhood. He was a sickly boy and often felt unwell. He suffered from strong headaches called migraines and sometimes had seizures. He also caught serious illnesses like scarlet fever. These health problems meant he often missed playing outside with other children. Instead, he spent many hours indoors. He used this time to study hard and read reports about business and money. When he was a young teenager, John became very ill with rheumatic fever. This illness made him weak and unable to do much. His father decided to send him away to get better. He sent John to the Azores, a group of islands far out in the Atlantic Ocean. John had to live there all by himself for nearly a whole year. His father hoped the warm climate and sea air would help John recover his health. It was a lonely time for the young boy without his family. After almost a year, John was well enough to leave the islands. He continued his education. He studied first in Boston. Then he went to Europe to study in Switzerland and later in Germany. He learned different languages and more about international finance. When John was 19 years old, in 1857, he was ready to start his career. His father was now a partner in a big banking company in London called George Peabody and Company. Junius used his connections to help John get a job. John started working on Wall Street in New York City. He worked for the American company connected to his father's London bank. His first tasks included writing reports about business news and political events happening in America. He sent these detailed reports to the London office. America was seen as an emerging market then, so this information was very important. This first job gave John valuable experience in the world of finance. 3. A new business and sad times. John's father worried about him. He thought John made decisions too quickly and got angry easily. His father believed John needed to learn to be more careful if he wanted to work with money. One time, John showed why his father was worried. In 1859, John visited New Orleans. A ship arrived with a lot of Brazilian coffee, but no one was there to buy it. John used the company's money to buy all the coffee. This was a very risky decision. John sold the coffee later and made good money. But the older people at the bank, including his father, did not like this kind of risk. They wanted him to be safer with money. John did not want to work in the same way. In 1861, when he was 24 years old, he left the safe, older company. He started his own business. His new company still worked for his father's bank in England, but it was his own. That same year, John married Amelia Sturgis. She was the first woman he loved. Amelia was not very strong. For a short time, John felt very happy. But soon, Amelia started coughing and the cough did not stop. A doctor said she had a serious illness called tuberculosis. Right after their wedding, John took Amelia on a long trip. They went to the area near the Mediterranean Sea. John hoped the different weather would help her get better like it helped him when he was young, but it did not work. Amelia died only 4 months after their wedding. John was just 24 and now his wife was dead. He was very, very sad. People believed he never really got over losing Amelia. After she died, John worked harder than ever before. He put all his time and energy into his business. While John had his own sad times, the United States was also in trouble. The American Civil War started around this time. In 1863, a new law said that men like John had to join the army and fight, but John did not go to war. He paid $300. This money paid for another man to go and fight instead of him. John did not fight, but he found ways to make money from the war. One famous example was with some old guns. He helped finance the purchase of 5,000 old guns called Hall carbines. The army sold them cheaply for about $3.50 each because they thought the guns were too old. But the group who bought them made small changes to the guns. Then they sold the same guns back to the army for $22 each. This was a huge price increase, more than 600%. It was a deal that made John a lot of money. But many people and the government did not like that he made money from the war in this way. It was not popular. 4. Mr. Morgan and the trains. In 1871, John Morgan started a new business with another important banker, Anthony Drexel. Their company was called Drexel, Morgan and Company. Later, the name changed to J.P.Morgan and Company. John managed this company for the rest of his life. Before this, Morgan often helped other people make deals. He connected rich people with new ideas, but Morgan was becoming richer and more famous. He started to use his own money to pay for big projects. He looked for a big area to invest his money. He saw a great chance in the American railroad system. At that time, the railroad business was very messy. Unlike steel or oil, no single person controlled the railroads. There were many small railroad companies. They often had trains going to the same places. These companies fought hard for customers. They made their prices very low to win business. This made it hard for them to make good money. Morgan saw a chance where others saw problems. He thought the best idea was to bring the railroad companies together. He wanted to merge small, weak companies into large, strong ones. This idea was called consolidation. Morgan knew that big companies could work better and save money. People started calling his method Morganization. Morgan started buying parts of many railroad companies. He took control of companies that did not have enough money. He improved their management and how they worked. Then he joined these small companies together. The new big company was very strong. It could beat smaller companies easily. Morgan often took over these smaller companies too. Morgan was different from other investors. He did not just buy parts of a company and wait. Morgan wanted control. He liked making the decisions. He often joined the board of directors in his companies. He used his power to tell the company what to do. He changed the leaders in the railroad companies. If a railroad company asked him for help, Morgan usually agreed only if they gave him full control. Morgan's control made the railroad business more stable. Companies stopped fighting so much. This made investors from Europe feel safer. A lot of money came from Europe to American railroads. This helped the railroads grow, and it made Morgan even richer. Morgan continued to buy more railroads. He always wanted to do bigger things. For example, he bought 250,000 shares of the New York Central Railroad, a very important railway. Another time, he organized the sale of $40 million in bonds. This money helped finish building the Northern Pacific Railroad. It was the biggest deal of its kind in the United States then. Soon, Morgan owned about 1/3 of all the railroads in America. Railroads were very important to the country's economy at that time. By controlling so many railroads, Morgan gained huge power and wealth. He was not just a banker anymore. He was changing whole industries. 5. Making big companies. J.P. Morgan was a tall man and looked very serious. Many people found him intimidating. He had a skin condition called rosacea. This illness made his nose very red, swollen, and bumpy. Morgan felt unhappy about his nose. He hated having his photograph taken. When he asked artists to paint his picture, he told them to fix his nose in the painting to make it look more normal. His unusual face, his large size, and his direct way of speaking made him a powerful figure that people respected and sometimes feared. Morgan was very good at making big companies. His most famous work involved steel. In 1901, he made an amazing deal. He bought Carnegie Steel, the country's top steel maker, from Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie was ready to stop working and sell his company. Morgan asked him for the price. Carnegie named a price of $480 million. At that time, this was more money than any business deal before. Morgan agreed right away. He later said he would have paid even $100 million more. Buying Carnegie Steel was just the first step. Morgan then merged it with other steel businesses. He created U.S. Steel. This was the world's first company worth $1 billion. Its value was $1.4 billion. To understand how big this was, all manufacturing businesses in the country together were worth about $9 billion. U.S. Steel controlled around two-thirds of all steel production in America. Morgan now had great power in steel, just like he had in railroads. Morgan's work went beyond steel and trains. He gave money to help Thomas Edison with his early ideas about electricity. Electricity was a new and exciting technology. Morgan later played a big part in joining Edison's company with others. This created the company we know as General Electric, or GE. GE became a very important company for electric power and products. Morgan was also involved in creating the company that grew into AT&T, a major telephone service provider. His skill was putting companies together to make them stronger and bigger, but not everyone liked Morgan's huge companies. Morgan combined his Northern Pacific Railroad with two other railroads. He created a very large new company called the Northern Securities Corporation. This gave him control over many important train lines. The president, Theodore Roosevelt, became worried. Roosevelt believed that such giant companies, sometimes called trusts, were bad because they stopped smaller companies from competing. This could mean higher prices for people. Roosevelt decided to act against Morgan. He used a special law, the Sherman Antitrust Act, which was made to stop companies from becoming too powerful and controlling a whole industry. The government sued the Northern Securities Corporation. Morgan fought the case in court. However, the court agreed with the president. It ruled that the Northern Securities Corporation broke the law. The company had to be broken up. This was a setback for Morgan and the start of a difficult relationship between the powerful banker and the president. Morgan was not happy about Roosevelt's actions. 6. Helping America in trouble. In the year 1893, the United States faced very hard times. A serious economic problem called a depression started. The American economy was suddenly in chaos. Stock prices fell quickly, losing almost half their value. Thousands of companies had to close. Hundreds of banks failed. Many workers lost their jobs. At this time, America used the gold standard. This meant the government promised that its paper money was worth a certain amount of gold. People could exchange their paper dollars for real gold. To keep this promise, the government kept a large amount of gold, usually at least $100 million worth. But the economic crisis scared investors, especially those in other countries. They sold their American bonds and took gold out of the country. This quickly reduced the government's gold supply. By 1895, the situation was dangerous. The government had very little gold left, maybe less than $9 million. It did not have enough gold to back its money. The U.S. government was very close to defaulting, meaning it could not pay its debts. This news caused more panic. More people tried to get gold, making the problem worse. America did not have a central bank then to help fix the situation. President Grover Cleveland knew he had to do something fast. The usual ways of getting money would take too long. J.P.Morgan saw the danger. He traveled to Washington, D.C. and met with President Cleveland. Morgan presented a bold plan. His idea was to create a group, called a syndicate. This syndicate would be made of Morgan and other important bankers. The syndicate offered to buy government bonds worth $65 million. They would pay for these bonds using 3.5 million ounces of gold. An old law allowed President Cleveland to agree to this deal immediately without waiting for Congress. President Cleveland accepted Morgan's offer. Morgan acted quickly. This fast action immediately calmed the financial markets. Faith in the U.S. economy started to return. Morgan's plan worked, and he helped stop an economic collapse. Morgan was a clever businessman. His group made a large profit from the deal because they got a good price on the bonds. While Morgan had helped the country, his actions also showed how much power one single banker had. People started to worry about this. Was it right for one man to have so much control over the nation's economy? People asked, did Morgan help America because he loved his country or mostly to make himself richer? These questions about the power of big banks became important topics. 7. Helping America again. In 1907, America had serious money problems again. It was another bad time for the country's economy. People were very worried about their money. They ran to the banks to take their cash out. This is called a bank run. Many banks did not have enough money to pay everyone. Some banks were close to closing forever. President Theodore Roosevelt was the leader of the country. He and J.P.Morgan did not always agree on things. They had problems in the past. But the situation in 1907 was very bad. President Roosevelt knew he needed help. He asked Morgan to fix the problem. Morgan knew what to do. He called the most important bankers in the country to his home. They met in his big library. Morgan had a plan. He wanted the rich, strong banks and bankers to give money to the weaker banks. This money would help the weak banks stay open. It would help them pay the people who wanted their cash. Morgan told the bankers his plan. Then he locked the doors of his library. He kept the bankers inside the room. They talked and talked for many hours. Morgan did not let them leave until they agreed to help. They had to agree to use their money to save the weaker banks. It was hard work. Morgan was 70 years old at this time. He was also sick with a bad cold. He coughed a lot during the meeting, but he did not stop working to save the economy. Finally, the bankers agreed to Morgan's plan. President Roosevelt also agreed. He trusted Morgan's ideas about business. The government, through the U.S. Treasury, helped too. It gave $25 million to support the banks. Morgan's plan worked. The money helped the banks stay open. People saw that the banks had money again. They stopped being scared. The bank runs ended. People started to feel safe about the American banking system again. Morgan had stopped another economic disaster. People were happy that Morgan helped the country. For a short time, many people called him a hero, but soon they started to worry again. They saw that America depended too much on one single, powerful man. It was dangerous for the country to need J.P.Morgan so much. People thought something needed to change. 8. His last years and legacy. In J.P. Morgan's last years, people watched rich businessmen more closely. They worried about their big power. Many felt it was not right for a few men to control so much money and so many companies. This time was ending. People wanted more fairness. Because people were worried, the government started the Pujo Committee. Its job was to study Wall Street power. They wanted to know how much control banks and men like Morgan had. Morgan had to answer the committee's questions. During these meetings, Morgan became the symbol of Wall Street power. When people thought about big banks and money, they thought of Morgan. He showed the money power the committee was studying. All this attention was hard for Morgan. His health got worse. He had problems with stress. He did not like the bad things people wrote about him in newspapers. The public criticism upset him. His bad health also changed his plans. Morgan had a ticket for the first trip of the Titanic in 1912, but he felt sick, so he canceled his trip just before the ship left. The Pujo Committee's work was important. It showed the country needed a better way to handle money problems. Depending on one rich man like Morgan was risky. This led to the Federal Reserve Act in 1913. This law created the Federal Reserve System, America's main bank system, to help keep the economy steady. J.P. Morgan did not live long enough to see this change. He traveled to Europe to rest. While visiting Rome, Italy, he became very ill and died. This was on March 31, 1913. He was 75 years old. After J.P. Morgan died, his son, Jack Morgan, took control of the family bank. J.P. Morgan and Co. Jack led the company for many years. The company J.P. Morgan started stayed important. Over the next 100 years, the bank grew bigger by joining with other financial companies. This was like Morgan's old idea. In 2000, it joined with Chase Bank. Today, the company is J.P. Morgan Chase, one of the biggest banks in the world. It manages trillions of dollars. Morgan's work still has a big effect. J.P. Morgan is still famous today. People have different ideas about him. Some think he was a great leader who helped America grow and saved it during bad money times. Others think he had too much power and cared mostly about money. His life changed American business. His story is not simple.
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like. Write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.